Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 5.8G Alive, a magazine show by Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connection 50 Plus, and with me, as usual.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome.
Good. So, YouTube family, Facebook family, well, we hope Facebook will get back live just now so we could talk, but it's posted on Facebook. And of course, Gael on a Monday afternoon. Last week, Jennifer, we had this discussion about the stresses that are facing us in life and the need for us to really, take stock and take responsibility of ourselves. And we're into the last quarter of the year. And a lot of people use this time for planning for the new year and thinking about our financial position and the assets that we have on. So we promise people that we will help you deal with the stress. Isn't that so, Jen?
Of course. And we did promise to bring on professionals in different areas to help give guidance and tips and ways that we can really protect our assets or preserve our assets. And we have Terry-Ann. We're going to chat with a very knowledgeable person and who would just let us know all about our property.
Exactly. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, for many of us, whether at this stage when you retire, the most valuable asset is the house, The car will depreciated, but even if you buy a new car, the house is more. And even if you don't own a house, you rent a property or you depend on this property to maintain its integrity for the rest of your life so that your children
keep that roof over your head.
Yeah, it is the main asset that is passed intergenerationally to give the children a start. And I think there are many, many areas of maintaining that asset that we don't consider. So listen, we have got, as Jennifer said, a powerhouse of a discussion. It's so significant. This is really the first part of a two-part series where we're dealing with this house, this property. The discussion went on so long that we had to split it in two. So let's begin this series, which looks at us being dollar savvy, because dollar savvy comes in, and our first guest with the practical advice series is our architect. So let's be dollar savvy. Nice. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, 5.8G crew, we are happy to start our series on minding your assets, Jennifer.
Yep.
And we are so happy. We want to start with what we think is probably, for most of us in the 5.8G, the biggest asset that you have, which is your home, your property. And we are very, very happy to have someone who we think will be able to take us from design to end, to all cover the spectrum of maintaining the value of your assets. And we want to introduce to you Andrew Nunez, who is a director and co-founder of the architectural firm Urbasys Limited. Welcome, Andrew.
Yes, thank you very much, Terry. Most welcome. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Andrew is not new to 5.8G Alive. You were once on when we were back in the Guile days when we were live in the studio.
At inception. Yes.
So he's a what you call them, the first day. They have a young people term for this. So I remember it eventually. But Andrew, before we start, could you let our audience know what is Urbasys? Who are you? What is Urbasys? Yes.
All right, okay. Urbasys is really an architectural consultancy firm that was formed by myself and my brother, who are architects, and we basically came out of, we started our firm about 30 plus years ago, right? And we've been together. Yeah. I basically come from a family of most of us were in the field of design in one way or the other. One of my brother passed away, Peter. He was a structural engineer. I have a structural engineer stroke project manager. He is up in Florida. Myself and Damian, architects. I retired. Another brother of mine used to work with TSTT, a retired structural technician. So we all were in the business of construction or construction-related services.
Mm-hmm.
And but Urbasys really was formed around that time. We formed with the name Third World Architecture originally. That was our original name, and then we changed from the Third World Architecture to Urbasys Limited, which is Urban Architectural Systems Limited, and that's really the acronym is Urbasys Limited, right? And we have been here for all of 30 plus years, survived the floods, the drought, everything in terms of every earthquake, everything in terms of the consultancy shakeup that you could think about, and tremors and traumas that you could think about. We have survived that. A lot of firms were bigger than us in scale, in terms of staff, in terms of jobs. Most of them are, in fact, I would say almost half or more of them are no longer in existence. We weren't of that size, but we maintain a particular discipline and structure, and I think that is our marketing strategy for our business itself has worked for us over the years, and I think that's one of the main reasons that we are still in the business, where a lot of other firms similar to us and had a bigger scale than us no longer didn't survive that kind of challenges that was met to the construction industry, specifically the consultancy part of it. But we here and we survive it. It's not always a walk in the park, but we understand the nature of our business and we understand what we need to do to stay. We understand when we have the lean times, how to make changes and to deal with different strategies in order to survive. And hence the reason that myself and Damian, because Damian is my brother, and he's the senior partner in the business, and we were able to in lean times we had to sit down, look at the strategy, make adjustments, and ban our belly, take some legs, make adjustments in terms of things like salaries, all these things that would be necessary to stay alive. We did that, and as we say in terms of praise God, we're still here and we surviving. This particular year, and we just went for lunch and we come back and he just told me, he said, "What?" He said, "It's one of the toughest years we've had," and it is so. But we're still here and we're surviving it. We have had to make our personal sacrifices to ensure our staff is fairly happy in terms of salary, in terms of the function, in terms of their being able to support their families. So we know we had to make our adjustments and sacrifice ourselves to ensure that because they are the gut of the business, we manage it, but they are the ones who produce the work that we design. So we had to keep them, and we have done that, and we're still doing that to a greater extent today. And this year, we can say for a fact has been really one of the most challenging years that we have had. But we will get through it because we have the mechanism, and we've been doing it since the beginning of the year. we've been having this challenge, but we're still here, so we will survive. Yeah.
We're so happy to see you as a post-COVID survivor, and you'll continue.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew,
So that is the backdrop of Urbasys Limited.
Yeah.
It's a firm that has just myself, my brother, as the principal architects and directors. My nephew Marlon, one of the senior technicians. We have our admin assistant, and then we have another technician who have been with us for also about 20-something years. So
Great.
so that's the core
Family
business.
business. Excellent.
Yeah, tight family business.
Andrew, I know that you spoke about your marketing strategies, and I know that Urbasys focuses on a particular segment of the market, which really is why we would have brought you here. But who are your clients? What kind of clients you tend to work with most of the time?
Well, our business, our core survival over the years have been primarily the private sector. Our clients would have been like, and our meeting yourself would have been one of our clients through where you saw AMCO. And we had a number of our corporate clients. We did a lot of work for Massey. We did a lot of work for Anthony P. Scott. We were their main consultants, handling some of the buildings like Park Plaza and the redefinition of Park Plaza from how it used to look to how it looking now, what they call like a rebirth of Park Plaza. But a number of our clients remain in that particular area. We had doctors, we had lawyers, we have had firms, manufacturing firms.
Yeah.
We did work for Massey. But Massey, we did a lot of work for Massey. Some of the outlets, some of the manufacturing departments. When you had the Massey, the real estate part, Massey Properties, we used to do a lot of work for them for all the properties all over Trinidad and Tobago, down east, west, north, and south.
So you would say that you are very familiar with the residential market, the individual market in Trinidad in terms of properties and management and making sure that properties maintain their values and are designed properly and so on.
Oh yes. From a business standpoint, because a lot of the properties we dealt with in terms of when we work with Massey, yourself. In addition to that, we have dealt with a number of residences all during that period of time, because that's where the core of our work still remained in terms of the private sector. You had the corporate sector, and then you had, of course, the firms, even some firms, some residences from individuals who were part of the corporate sector too as well. But we did a number of homes. So we understand, and we still do homes because we still have clients who, even though we do handle some of the business, sometimes the family and want to design new homes, do homes. We also did developments as well. We do housing developments as well. So we had that part of the experience too as well in terms of planning certain types of housing development in the east for ALAC East and off of Shops of Arima at Vista. I remember the name of it. But that whole development inside it, we had myself and David, we had designs for those homes and stuff like that. So we kind of have our arms, our hands in all the different areas of development.
Andrew, can I welcome again? You know, I know you have a lot from what you're saying. There's a lot of experience, you know, widespread. But looking at the residential side, and, you know, those of us who may, you know, had their homes and was able, of course, to maintain it while you're working, and now that you're no longer in a good place with less income, etc., may have paid off for the mortgage, but very concerned now about maintaining that property value, because, you know, you may think at some stage the market was very, very good, and good meaning that values were just sky high. And now, to me, it's more or less flat, you know? How would someone who would have paid off for their mortgage and with little resources
Mhm.
want
Yes,
to
yeah.
maintain that property value?
Well, the thing about it is, Jennifer, is that you have a situation where just like I said, when you were employed and you're working, you could have done a number of things. We say on our side that when you're working, you should do a number of things because
Okay.
and the reason why you want to do a number of things when you're working is because you understand that there will come a period of time when you will be able to work and a number of the things that you could do, you will now not be able to do to maintain that property. Because property maintenance, and one of the challenges of buildings, residences, as well as commercial buildings, is how well you maintain your property has a lot to do with how much money you spend on the property. Some people will say, well, you know, when certain things not functioning, you maintain it. Well, we in our business, we try to encourage people to do what we call preventative maintenance, because preventive maintenance sometimes is less expensive than waiting until something actually is, you know, breaking down or not functioning well, then to try to maintain it. Especially when you do not have the level of resources to actually treat it maintenance in the way it's supposed to be treated. You try to do what we call preventative maintenance. So you don't wait until something actually gives in trouble to start to look to say, okay, right, I need to get it done. Because what happens then is that you're now spending much more money. And in the case where you're not actually, you don't have a quote unquote steady income on the scale that you would have had, because some people would still have the steady income, they have the little income from the coming. So that is okay. But what you don't have like a general salary that flow in and all the rest of it. So you look at really the composition of your structure, and the composition of the structure is the composition of the house, basically we're talking about. And the house is broken down into certain components. You'll have, for instance, in our field, we will call what we call, you have two components. You have the substructure and you have the superstructure. So the substructure is everything in the ground. So that's the foundation and all those things. The superstructure is things that from this floor slab coming up, your walls, your floors, your ceilings, your lighting, some of your plumbing, that because you have some substructure plumbing, because you have some plumbing in the ground, and then you have some above. So you take all those, you basically do a list of the components that represents your superstructure, because you see most of the items that you have challenges of would be primarily those challenges above ground. The challenges that you will have below ground would be things like your things like plumbing and stuff, which in some cases you have infrastructure plumbing, which is in the ground, right? But a number of where most clients spend, most of the money in maintenance of a structure is above ground. And what we say is that the superstructure is something that you have to look at. Take the elements of the superstructure now, and you could start to look at what is your situation in terms of electrical, what is your present situation in terms of your plumbing, what is the present situation. So you kind of make notes of all these things, because these are the areas that you will have to attend to. You have your roof, you have the composition of your roof, you have your roof finish, you have your roof framing. So once you could put down these points, you find that you have a sense of all the things that make up where something can go wrong. And even if before it go wrong, you always look at it and say, okay, let me see what it is, how the roof looking at this point in time, how is the finish of the roof functioning from the time that I would have placed that, your galvanized sheeting or whatever finish that you have on your roof. How is that reacting to the weather conditions? So every so often you do an inspection. So once you do that, sometimes instead of waiting for a whole mass of your roof finish
to renovate.
So you spend a little money to just deal with something because what you keep doing, because like I say, you don't have the general amount of funds to be able to deal with it in that big scale. So you try to make sure you maintain it on a smaller scale. And in so doing, you find you put out less money, and your structure, you make sure that your structure is always up to date. Electrical is one item, because a lot of people would have done, because when you had homes, for instance, a number where we came from, our homes didn't have air conditioning units. Even when in some cases when we had actually built our homes, you didn't have as much air conditioning. Now you have air conditioning, which means your panels, where you had dryers, your children come in, they put this, they put that. So you have all correct. So you have all these improvements in terms of your living standard when you had money, and when you were working. Now you're not working, but they are still there. So what you have to do now is to maintain these things as well. Yeah, AC maintenance, as you know, goes with goes every, like say approximately every 3 months. You're ideally supposed to maintain a unit. Now what you do is that when you do it like that,
3 months, you say, Andrew.
Andrew,
every
I'm
3 to 4
because
months.
every time
Right,
the guy
right,
calls and say,
maintenance, yeah, the preventive maintenance.
to clean the air conditioner and say, not yet, give me an S.
No,
Wait,
no.
it's 2 months. I will try not to use it as often, you know?
Right, so you talk about 3 to 4 months,
Yeah.
you're supposed to have your thing come in and he does the cleaning. Because what happens is that AC parts will go bad. But once you maintain them properly, they last you a longer period of time. And you spend, because a lot of these parts are very expensive.
Andrew,
And if
I
a part
call the
goes
AC man once a year.
And as electrical, you have the same for the, and we talk about the services structure. So the services is electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, right? AC, electrical, and plumbing. So those are your services infrastructure work. So you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, as you're speaking, Andrew, what came to me, and of course, because that is uppermost in my mind right now. At this time, should we, in terms of the maintenance, and I like how you put it in order so you will understand what to give priority to. But should we also, for instance, at this time with the weather and the hurricane season, I recall, as a child, from the time, the hurricane season, my mother used to call the guy to come and go on top of the roof to nail it, put more nails down to keep the galvanized down just in case, Should we then, knowing that we have the seasons, so we have the hurricane season coming up, should we then at that time ensure that the roof and thing is in order? Or from what you were saying, we shouldn't even wait until then. We should be aware that if your house is X amount of years, that is maybe time to check the roof.
Yes, absolutely. Because what happens is that sometimes when we would have done construct some of the homes, you find a lot of cases it might have been, if you talk about galvanized sheeting,
yeah,
you would not have had screws to fit the galvanized. You have galvanized nails.
Okay.
Right. So after a time, the nails will come up. So when you're doing a maintenance, you have to replace those nails with screws, because the screws are one that's actually pinned. So you find, so when if you do it on a regular basis, you wouldn't have to spend a whole lot, because every time
you wouldn't have to worry about hurricane season.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to wait until hurricane season. Yeah.
If you're on a single story, in some cases you might be able to get a ladder, so you could take a shot of what is taken on top, and you see one or two sheetings look like they've been compromised. You can say, okay, here what it is. I will put out a little bit to treat with that, to make sure that is sorted out. What you're basically doing is really you're upgrading your roof finish, but you're doing it on a small scale, and it's not going to impact too much on the finance.
Yeah.
Right? But if you wait until all the sheets start to rot, all the nails start to come up, then of course you have an issue. So you can take a look and say, okay, first time you look at it, you say, something, we have to upgrade from these nails to screws, because you want to make sure you keep the roof sheeting, the finishes down a lot better than what we had before. So you do that as a change. So that will be one upgrade. Although the sheeting has been changed, but the strapping of the sheeting onto the frame is something that you would have improved on. So you kind of look at those general improvement, and that is what gets you through the period of ensuring that you're not having to you wouldn't have to put out a whole lot of money to deal with these items. And because you don't have that income, you need to look at these things in that particular manner so that you can address the air conditioning, like I say, every 3 months.
Let's use one section at a time, because I'm still kind of stressed out about the AC. So let's look at our roofing systems.
Yeah.
I really call the AC man once a year, and I know you watch.
Yeah, no, you need to call
Probably
him. You need to call
you
him.
talking. But if what else is the roof covers our house, and
Yeah.
what else should we be looking at to make sure there is appropriate preventative maintenance on our roofing system? So you talked about if you have galvanized sheets, converting from nails to screws. What else should we be looking at to ensure that our roof remains stable?
Right. So what would have happened over the years too as well? A number of people, a number of individuals would have been timber frame. Now, however, you have moved from timber to steel framing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. The issue right now, if you're talking about present day, if I indicate to anybody who have a timber frame roof to change it to steel, well, from all our knowledge, the cost of steel now is so high that if you're not actually working and do not have that level of fund, it is a challenge to change, make that complete change over.
Yeah.
Right. So what you need to you'll have to advise a person now and say, look, you now have to check your timber frame to ensure that the frame, because remember timber frame itself is just as strong in some cases in terms of its structural component, the way it was designed in some cases, it's just as strong as steel, you know.
Yeah.
It's just as steel spans a wider distance. So where I would have used 5 pieces of rafters, 2x6, 2x4, I might just have to use 2 pieces of steel, right? Mm-hmm. But really, actually, the integrity of the roof, once it's designed properly, it is strong, whether it is steel, whether it is timber, right? Because a lot of our houses have survived hurricane and they won't steel roof.
Yeah.
Steel came into being as what we call a standard form of framing because all of us were concerned about the termites.
I'm just about to ask that because that means that's why you had to change the timber because of the termites. Yeah.
Right, but however, once you have proper treated lumber,
okay, and
you have an agency that comes in every so often and give it some additional treatment, deal with your subterranean, still be able to penetrate around your structure to cut out the subterranean termites, then your roof lasts long because the termites that actually attack your roof comes from the ground.
Yeah.
Right. But if so, and that's one of the preventative maintenance I wanted to speak about too as well, and that is the substructure. So the superstructure is obviously most people do, but the substructure you have to attend to it too as well, because you remember is that all these individuals who deals with your chewing up of your roof and your roof members, they all come from the ground. They don't come from the air. They don't fall from the air. They come from the ground and come up. So. Right. So if you have, and that is one thing that you should do too as well, fairly regular, especially if you have a lot of timber, whether it is the roof or whether it is your kitchen, whether it's your cupboards, they all sometimes, most of them is done out of lumber. So you need to do that as an exercise, as a preventative maintenance exercise.
So how that at the end of the day, your stress today for me is how often?
No, in terms of your
termite man.
You can do that every 3 years. You know that should be some exercise if it's affordable, and it's not really that an expensive exercise either.
Yeah.
Right, but it's something that you should do every 3 years. So at least just to ensure you protect the integrity of your structure, especially the timber parts of your structure.
So let me ask you again, Andy, that's not the system where they come and they cover the entire house and you have to move out for some days.
No, that is when you're in a bad way and you're coming out to treat it.
To avoid reaching that way. Okay.
So preventative now is where you do it in the ground. So you actually prevent the termites, you kill the termites and them from coming up.
Okay.
So right. But once they're above now, you have the challenge now of that's where you find it sometimes it's so bad. You see people coming to cover the whole house and the roof is covered with right, and that is when it is really in a bad state. But most of the time you can, because your termites come from a foundation. So because initially, now for instance, when you're building a house, you will realize a lot of in terms of the financial institution, they look at things like that. They look at whether you have, before you do your structure, you do your termite treatment of the soil and stuff like that. And then of course you also come and do so as you finish your foundation, you put some more treatment on it. As to ensure that the termites don't come from your base coming up. And that's one of the preventative measures. But once the house is in place, then you could look at the preventative, which is to drill in and put the material in the ground to keep them at bay. Once you do that, you find your roof would last longer, and you wouldn't have to. It's not a necessity to change from lumber to steel, because your roof is, when you look every so often you examine it, you can see, well, okay, it's protected. You're not seeing any little grains falling down the ground. You know that you're okay as far as that goes. And some of the material that we use in some cases, once they are termite treatment, they will also give you a good life to as well.
And you know, that also says, and that's really important information you're sharing there. What that also says to me is that if you're doing a renovation onto the house, that is very important to also treat before you do that renovation, because you may tend to just, well, renovate, and I'm thinking without
Jennifer,
not revealing anything, but you know, we tend to say we will add on a room, you know, we put a little extension and we fix it up and we put the roof and everything, but we're not thinking of what you're saying there at all.
Yeah, because every extension you're going to do,
treated, you know,
every extension you're going to do, you approach it, you deal with it from the substructure level, and the substructure is the ground. So you protect that area with the same material you would have done your original structure. Your upper level, if you're buying lumber, you make sure you make sure you get and you ask for and you pay for treated lumber, because it will be a little more expensive than the other. But you make sure you get treated lumber and you put that to as well, so that your extension structure is as good as your new. Right? And not looking as good as the new, but actually functioning. Yes. Because obviously you look like everything looking nice, but
if you didn't do that with the original, or you haven't maintained the original, then that is the time also to do that.
Yeah, to deal with this new part. That's correct. That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah,
that is very
that's
Andrew, if you have your house in place now and you've not done since the house built, you ain't bringing no termite people or anything like that. And you're seeing your little old lady sugar dripping all over the place, and every weekend you're sweeping it, you're going like no but. All right, so now you're retired. You can't change your roof, it's a timber roof. You're not going to, but it is possible to call in service companies that can no rent to kill does it. We don't promote people, but who can put the drill into the ground to stop the termites from going up. And I know there are treatments that you can put onto the timber, the rafters, and the
as well. Yes.
Now, what about people who have not galvanized but shingles and tile roofs?
Well, shingles, we had started this. There was a history of shingles in Trinidad and Tobago, and that came to be because, of course, we looked at a number of the North American homes, and they were very nice. And far apart from the general aesthetics of the home, most of us were marveled and were wowed by the roof. So the roof design was one, but beyond the roof design, we looked at the finish of the roof. Because the finish of the roof is fairly neat and nice and flat, and so it didn't have these wavy lines like our galvanized and what have you. So we had gravitated at one time to that without understanding that shingles are really not for our climate.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a climate that supports shingles properly. Because shingles does one or two. First to begin, shingles trap heat.
Yes.
Right? And we in a country that we want to get rid of heat. We don't want to trap heat. We want to repel heat. And that is what some galvanized does. It repels a fair amount of the heat, right? And some of the galvanized material. But shingles is an absorption of heat. It also traps a lot of moisture. And in our country, you know, moisture is abound because of the temperature where we are. So and once you have moist, now shingles by itself traps heat. When you add moisture in that shingle, it traps twice as much heat.
Steam.
So the heat gets
to melt the snow.
Yeah, because and that is why shingles really had made basically more or less a cold climate kind of material, because it does better, it works better outside there where you have fluctuation. Even in Florida, even though Florida have a heat, wherever parts in Florida also have it at certain times of the year, they are very cold too as well. You're going in Miami, same story. We don't have that kind of condition here, but we had actually fall in love with the material. It was also inexpensive. Right? And that is why a lot of people did shingles, and most of the people who would have communicated to us in terms of shingles, we would have encouraged them to change over that shingles back down to a sheeting, whether it's galvanized, whether it's standing seam, whatever it is. Yeah. So and that is what was up. But really, and shingles wasn't too good for the climate that we're in here.
So Andrew, what is the prognosis for the people with shingles? People like me who have shingles on my roof.
Because you have shingles on your right. So one of the things about that, if for instance we were taking out shingles, if you have shingles and you take off shingles, a number of things will happen. One is that your energy costs, because the shingle itself creates that amount of heat that your air conditioner, the air conditioner with more heat is the more it have to push, then of course it takes your energy cost up. So if for instance you're paying right now, and I say it without knowing what you're, even though I know Terrian's long, I don't know how much you're paying for electricity. You never share that with me. We share all kind of information.
I'm a high roof, so it's okay to keep staying up there.
But it will reduce that energy cost because it put less strain on the internal part of it. Because what is happening right now, because you would have had you would have gypsum in your ceiling, so correct?
No, shingles and wood.
Shingles and wood, right? So it's exposed rafters you have, right?
Yes.
Exposed, right? So yeah, try to remember. It's how long I come by Terry. Exposed rafters, right? So Terry, yeah. So exposed rafters, you find the heat from that. It impacts on your internal spaces. So your air conditioner, you have to work harder to get that heat to pull down, to bring that heat down, to cool down the space. And in so doing, you find the energy costs would be fairly high. If you remove that, just removing that, shingles alone itself, and because with shingles, you have to have a decking, because that's what you have. You have a decking if it's close-boarded ceiling, close-boarded decking if it's limber, whatever it is, but it's a decking that you put. And then of course you have all that heat that traps inside it. You don't have a breather when shingles drops on your decking. Sheeting is slightly different. Sheeting, when you put sheeting, because of the ribs, there's a space there, and that's an air space. So you find air goes out through the outside. When you breeze blow it, you'll find somebody like go inside, filters, and go back outside. Shingles, you don't have that because shingles flat, smack bang on top of the right. So that is really where the issues are. But I know when we would have done a number of, and in your case too as well, the finish itself of shingles look nice, but the heat and the moisture, the natural heat. The natural heat that the shingles absorb, in addition with the moisture makes it kind of more like twice the amount of heat, because it means that the heat takes longer to go back out, to get out of your space.
And that's why every room has an electric fan on the
ceiling. There you go.
To move it.
And
electric fan.
Andrew, as you're talking about the roof. And I have a friend who, when they build their house in some years now, they did a concrete roof with the intention, of course, of putting a apartment upstairs, building upstairs. This has been done 20 years ago. But somewhere along the line, of course, they never got the money to do what they planned. And this roof now started to leak and crack. Someone like that, situations like that, where they have a concrete roof, and of course, with the intentions of building on top, what would you suggest? What can be done in that case?
Well, you think about it, you have two situations that will develop there. You will get cracks in a concrete roof if you just a floor, because remember it was supposed to support
if you did it as like that, not really, yes,
right.
Okay.
So with the concrete, after a period of time with the weather, concrete, when you build a home, you find after a time you have what we call settlement cracks, because the home has to settle down like everything else. And in settling down, you will get settlement cracks, and sometimes that appears on the roof. Even the shrinkage of the concrete after a time, you'll get those happening. And you will always find water is like a miracle fluid. It finds its way in areas. It finds its way in areas that I and you would not believe that it would have gone. A simple little crack inside there, where you will say, oh, that's a little thing, but water will find its way down. So what will happen is that if you're doing that, and you shop, whoever it is have to operate with it like if it's always a concrete, because that's basically what you have now is a concrete, because you don't have a floor above it, and you may never put a floor above it. Right, correct. So what the first thing you have to do is you have to, and one of the reasons why you have the situation of the water leak is because when rain falls and you have water on the roof, there's no place for the water to run off. So the water stays longer on the roof, and all you depend on now is what we call evaporation primarily, right? Because it's not running off anywhere fast. So what you have to create a condition for the water to move off the surface. And to do that, you have to present a screed. Part of it would have to be higher, and part of it, because what you want to do is when the water falls, it runs off. So you have to screed the floor, what we call screed to fall. So you have to screed the concrete, which is a cementitious screed, which is like what you put on your ground floor before you put tiles. You put a screed, and then you put your finish on the screed, right? Because you have your raw slab, then you have an 1.5 inch screed, and then you have your finish. With a roof, you have the slab. You don't have to put probably an 1.5 inch screed, but you have to lay that screed to fall, because either if it's a wide area, from the center is high, and you tip and let it fall evenly going on the side. So when the rain falls, it runs off. But that is one component of it. The next component is that you now have to get a material, a waterproofing material, to seal that material that they put on top of the concrete. Right? Because remember, that in itself is what we call lightweight cement. That is a lightweight screed. That is sand, basically sand and cement. So you have to put a material. You have to put a material to seal that, right? And then, of course, or you could get a material, a composition, a material to seal, and a material to reflect some of the elements that you have, which is like the sunlight and so. So at the end of the day, any little crack that appears, that material could seal those areas, and then you have a normal run. So when the rain falls, the water runs off the side and falls down. You don't have water, because the longer you have water ponding, is the greater chances of a leak on top of roof.
And I know because
so you have to do a screed. So your screed will be a cementitious screed, build up high on top, or at least a high enough, 1.5 inches or thereabouts, and screed down to the side, probably down to about 1/2 inch or so, so at least when the rain falls, the water will run off, either if it's in one direction or two directions, however it is you do it, but you have to do it like that. And and then on top of that, you put your waterproofing membrane, because the waterproofing membrane is what seals the roof now from water penetrating and going down inside.
Because there are many people who have done that, with the hope, of course, that they can either build on top to accommodate when the children looking for space, extra space, etc. And that has been happening because that particular area that my friend lives in, many of them did their roofs like that, planning to, go up. And
go up,
so from what you're saying too, for persons who have done that, and you have to look at the preventative, because the whole roof could just cave in on them if they don't give that priority.
Yeah, the biggest thing is to try to get the water to run off the roof. You do not want the water to remain on top of your roof for too long, because the longer that water remains on that roof, the chances of it leaking is absolutely.
And that is what is happening. Okay, okay.
And I think it's not only that, even if you might not be able to do the extension, when your children get around to saying, okay, ma or daddy, I could build on top now. You don't have a floor.
Yes.
You don't have a floor that they can.
Yes.
That's so, very true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And just to talk about Terry, in terms of the shingles, one of the things you need to do for your shingles as you have your shingles roof is you always have to try to ensure that moisture don't build up on you, because every time moisture build on shingles, it makes the heat trap even further.
How do you do that? How do you do that? Let me make sure my maintenance is going right.
Well, you have to come back to a kind of power washing too as well. Not too heavy, because shingles have a kind of grain and you can't wash it too heavy because you take that off. But you still have to ensure, even if you have to go up, have somebody go up with some sort of rough broom and keep stinging it to prevent that, because as much moisture built on that roof is the hotter you'll feel. The temperature.
And there's something that can be coated on it to make it less absorbing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you have some chemical. Like carbon chemicals. Some of them, once you call them, they will tell you the type of chemicals they have that they can put on top of it to kind of screen it off. Outside of that, other people would have then put they would then cover it over. They would have put lats, and they would have covered it with sheeting, and so you have the shingles still there underneath, but on top of it is sheeting.
And one more question as you're on roof. And again, we are talking about those who have a property.
We can't move from this roof at all.
Those who have a property and may be interested in extending, because as I said, this is the stage we all at, the 5.8 stage, where you may look to expand, extend so you can rent out, etc. Is there, in terms of advice on the shape of roof? Because I know some people say, no, they have nice shaped roof. You're driving around and you're seeing all different shaped roofs now. For it to be, in terms of easily maintained, is there a difference in terms of costing with the shape of the roof?
Yeah, well, yes. Roofs costs have a lot to do with the change in form of the roof. Every time you change the form of a roof, it means you add additional members to that, and then of course there is additional costs. If for instance, if I do what we call a lean-to is what we call a shed roof. Like for a long time, your parents built a little shed, and it's one slope. Right, that's what we call a shed roof, but that is a lean-to roof. That is if you want to talk about maintenance, maintenance or roof. However, that has been the style that has come back into play in architecture right now for houses. There was a time, there's an element of, there's a design that you could put in place with a lean-to roof that makes it look really unique and nice, right?
Very futuristic. Yeah.
So even though it's on one side, it is done now. So a lot of the homes that used to have, what we are accustomed with is a hip and this kind of, you don't have, a lot of people have moved away from that. There's still have some people doing it, but it is a more, if you're talking about a situation where you're not employed.
Yeah, the resources very limited.
Pension.
What is the most economical roof for me to put in place?
Right.
Well, the most economical roof based on your form of your house would be a lean-to roof.
Okay.
And in fact, it is the easiest thing to maintain.
Okay.
You have one wall and you could treat with it very, very, very simple. Your material, easy to use. Even if you have shingles on a lean-to, is easier to maintain than if you have hips and valleys and stuff like that.
Okay.
Nice. It seems as though as we are going forward with our senior years, we talk about our house, the roof over our head. You have to keep a roof over our heads. And there is so much about the roof that we are talking about here. We've been talking for almost 45 minutes on the roof.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that, because in most cases, The most expensive thing that you will ever do if you have to actually do serious work will be a roof. Because roof is an expensive exercise. It's one of the most expensive exercise elements in a house construction.
Yes.
That's just the fact of it. Outside of your general frame, when you look at cost, you look at a general cost of your home. Even if you go back to your own home, if you had something like a breakdown, go back and you look at the breakdown and you will see the roof cost as opposed to the other.
Absolutely. I remember when we were building our house, there was a design for the roof.
And that's why the one that exposed to the element, that is the one that exposed to the element all the time. So that is the part of the house that is most vulnerable to deterioration. That's where people spend most of the money sometimes, still in roof.
Yeah, I remember our builder telling us, because that was at a time when the exchange rate had changed, and he said we could cut a good chunk of money out of this thing, change that design, the roof design from garage, and make a floor slab. And that's how I ended up with a deck.
It's an expensive element, and people are thinking the roof, only think about the finish of the roof, but the frame of the roof is what sometimes costs a tremendous amount of money. Just a frame, the framing to receive heating is a high cost.
And does the framing also require maintenance? Because roof maintenance is not just the shingles or the concrete or the galvanized or the steel sheets. The framing, what should we look at for framing?
Well, this is why people would have changed from lumber to steel, because steel is a less maintenance for steel, right, as opposed to lumber. But yes, but you still have to look at the maintenance of your frame, because that in itself really represents as your core roof. You know, you can always change that sheeting, but the frame is free. You don't want to change that frame so regular, because that's where that cost is heavy. And the frame, not only the material, but the fixing of the material to the house is expensive, because remember that frame has to be fixed to your house properly. And that fixing detail and that exercise in itself, and that cost in itself is also high.
So Jen, that was the end of the first half. Jen, how you feel as a property owner now with the roof?
It's interesting. It's interesting. In my situation, thankfully, the property I'm in is a fairly new development. So certain issues I may not have. But remember, I recently did a slight renovation. And as Andrew spoke, you know, I kept like, if it was a checklist, thinking, okay, did the electrician do this right? Did the painter do this right? Did, you know? Yeah. So it was very, very good for me. And I, you know, in checking what else, what should I have done differently? I think I am okay with that.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, I had, I think the contractor was experienced enough, and I did not touch the roof. And the reason I didn't, Tarian, is because initially I said, roof is expensive. It is expensive. But when I have to, I know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, from the information that Andrew shared, I know what to do. Keep it simple.
So we have the second part of this, understanding your property, next week. So we truly hope that you enjoyed that. So we're going to skip over to another important segment, because something is happening this week.
Yeah.
All right. Jennifer, Friday is a big day.
Excitement. 2 days. 2 days. Yeah.
Yes.
Friday, and that's it.
Yes, and that's it.
Real excitement. I mean, Tarian really got a great support.
This is
you all say, yes, we on board. And then just say it, registered, paid, and just waiting on Friday. Yes. It's going to be lots and lots of fun, Tarian.
Let me tell you, if you don't have friends and you don't leave Friday with at least a friend, we have to tell them informed. But it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have a nice curried lunch. You're going to have some nice extra goodies and specials. We enlisted Chimu Bakery to help us with some snacks. Remember, we spoke to Natalie Phillips, so we get some good Chimu stuff. We're going to have some refreshments. And because it's such a big crew and a big people, feel free, bring your libations, bring your things.
Yeah, and you know what's is good when you're up there, Terrian? You can do so many things. You can do the fishing, they just taking that nature walk. I mean, lots and lots to be done during that day.
There's just for $40 extra, you can buy bait, you can get rods, and they allow you to fish up to 5 pounds of fish and 5 pounds of crayfish. You get a little package with your rod and your bait. You can go to the shrine, those who want to have a little reflection, walk along the river, and even walk along the lake, you know.
There's so much to do. Just a beautiful day it would be. Yeah.
So I say, you know, come in, have our little hut, but feel free to bring your blanket and bring your little basket and bring your little deck chair. And if you have a guitar or a quattro, bring it with you. We can have a little. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So next week, we continue our discussion with Andrew, but Friday, we line in La Vega. And we will see you all
And
there.
next week, we'll be able to tell you, well, we'll show some photos.
Yes. So see you all. This was a beautiful evening. So take care. Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and followers from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.